and my grandpa ran a place called Hillcrest Country Club in Los Angeles. And LA Country Club wouldn't allow blacks, Catholics, Mexicans. I was about 10 years old then, and I was much closer to playing with toy trains than sitting in front of troop trains, but that shows your usual adherence to veracity and fact. So then it got going, and we had a fun relationship over the years. Later, he gave me a humanitarian presidential award, and we visited when he came home to Century City, but in those days, it was interesting. So I decided to be a grad counselor in an undergraduate dorm to work my way through law school. And they moved the freshman football team into the dorm, and one of the students was a quarterback named Steve Bartkowski. And we had other people too. We had a fellow named Brian Maxwell who was a runner, and he went out and founded the company Power Bar. We had a young, I guess you would call him a nerd, back in those days, and the athletes all picked on him. So you know how this goes. The athletes that picked on the nerds in high school are now washing their limos because they're all in high tech. So, and there was another Steve, and even though the athletes picked on him, he did okay because his name was Steve Wozniak, and he went down to Santa Clara and put Apple Computer together. So Bartkowski was the first pick in the first round of the NFL draft, and there was a World Football League competing. So I'd been out of law school, I was traveling around the world, and in 1975 he asked me to represent him. So there I was, brimming with legal experience, never having practiced before, and I had the first pick in the first round of the draft. So we got lucky, we got the largest rookie contract in NFL history. And we left Berkeley to fly to the Atlanta airport. And we get to the airport, and there are fleet lights flashing in the sky like for a movie premiere. A huge crowd is pressed up against the police line, and the first thing we hear is, "We interrupt the Johnny Carson show to bring a special news bulletin. Steve Bartkowski and his attorney Leigh Steinberg have just arrived at the Atlanta airport. We switch you live for an in-depth interview." So I sort of looked at him probably the way that Dorothy looked at Toto when they got to Munchkinland, and I said, "I know we're not in Berkeley anymore." And it was then I saw the tremendous idol worship and veneration that athletes were held in communities across the country. My father had two core values: relationships, especially family. And the second was to try to make a meaningful, positive impact in the world and help people who couldn't help themselves. So I was looking for a profession that would allow me to do that. And I saw then that athletes had a unique opportunity to serve as role models and further imitative behavior. And we asked them to go back to the high school community that helped shape them and set up a scholarship fund or work with the church or Boys and Girls Club, but to lay down roots. And then at the collegiate level, to go back to the college institution, stay bonded with the alums, bonded with the younger athletes, bonded with the program, and perhaps set up a scholarship there too. So Steve Young established one at BYU, and Drew Bledsoe at Washington State, and Eric Terros and Troy Aikman at UCLA, and Edgar James at Miami, and on, Terry Collins at Penn State. A way of staying rooted, because actually all the relationships they would ever need were present in that alumni group. And then at the pro level, I challenged each of them to find something in their own life that they would like to tackle if they had a chance. And then we would put a foundation together that would be made up of the leading political figures, community leaders, and business leaders to execute some program that was a fundraiser and awareness raiser. Years ago, we did one with Rolf Manerska, the place kicker for the San Diego Chargers, and he cared about endangered species, so we went to the San Diego Zoo and put a program together called Kick, and he was a place kicker, Kicks for Critters. So for every field goal he kicked, he gave money to the zoo. We had posters and pledge cards. The first year he kicked a field goal off the flipper of a sea lion, and the second year off the hoof, well, whatever you call the appendage of an elephant, and posters and pledge cards proliferated throughout the city. Walk in a 7-Eleven store, poster pledge card. Walk in every store. And he was able to raise over $10 million for endangered species, to raise the issue, and little kids collected cans for cookers. Work done, running back for camp in Atlanta, just put the 139th single mother and her family into the first home they'll ever own by making the down payment and having Home Depot outfit it. So a way to change lives. And so the athletes have raised over $800 million for charity. We're shooting for $1 billion pretty soon. Well, that's still serious money. And messaging is something else that athletes have the ability to do. The saddest thing about the whole domestic violence uproar in the NFL is that the NFL has always had a golden opportunity to model the issue of not putting your hands in anger on anyone in the world, unless it's a native woman. So I had Lennox Lewis, the heavyweight boxing champion, cut a public service announcement that said, "Real men don't hit women." And that could do more to impact rebellious adolescents, and they don't listen to any authority figures. They don't want to listen to their parents. They don't credit commercials. They don't listen to very many people. But the athlete can permeate the perceptual stream and get a message through and across, if you're not going to say, he's not macho. Right? So, and Oscar De La Hoya and Steve Young credited this as foul play. So the messaging has been powerful too. So when I started in the sports agency, it was a wild, like Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals would just, you call him up and he said, "We don't deal with agents." Click. So it took a while for that to get going. And when I started, mostly parents represented their kids. And it was the wild, wild west. I saw agents give money, cars, anything you can imagine to athletes to sign them to contracts. One day I walked into the Senior Bowl, and there were two very flashily dressed women there, and a friend of mine told me that they were ladies of the night who were there to convince players to go to an agent, which sort of flabbergasted me. So it was that way for many, many years. Now it's a little different because to be an agent in a sport like football, someone needs an undergrad degree, a law or business school degree, they have to follow a code of ethics, and they can be kicked out by the Players Association. In addition, there are state laws and regulations so that Texas, Florida, and Alabama have actually sent agents to jail who have violated those regulations. And then you have compliance on every campus. So it really is a tale of two cities. On the one hand, you have athletes that use their parents, use the school, use screening, due diligence, incredible amounts of questions, and they get good representation, and they get good financial planning. And then you have the other athletes, and it's very difficult. So I started out really well in this profession. I'm the hottest young lawyer in the sport. I have the record-breaking first pick in the draft, and I signed some more clients. But what I didn't understand is how tough the economics of sports representation could be. So I got to the point, and my office was in my parents' card room. If you called me, I answered the phone. And if you called me and I was on the phone, trying to convince your kids of this, it rang busy. Yeah. So, and I went to Kinko's Copies and did my own copies and did everything. And that run through all my father's credit cards. And he comes to me and he says, you know, I'm a high school teacher and then principal. I don't have any more money left to support this. So I got great clients, but I have a lot of red ink. So PSA said I hit squat out. Remember that airline looking for me and Hertz and all the rest of it. So fundamentally, it was tough. So I asked Steve Berkowski if he could fly me back to Atlanta, and he did. And I got in a car and drove south in Atlanta to a place called Douglas, Georgia, which was the old South, and it was really old South 40 years ago. And this fellow was driving me, and there were two linemen there. One was named Joel Cowboy Parrish, and the other was Mike Moonpie Wilson. So my object was Cowboy. So I get down there, and he had this cup on the dashboard, and it was filled with this brown liquid, and I didn't have any idea what it was. So we go around a turn, and tobacco juice spills all over my clothes. And it's Joel Cowboy Parrish Day in Douglas, Georgia. So I looked mighty nifty and smelled even better. And now I had to meet the parents in the Deep South. But anyway, I was able to represent Joe. We signed a contract in Canada. I got money paid. I survived. And the years got better and better and better. So I ended up representing 60 first-round draft picks in the NFL. The very first pick in the first round, 8 different years. We had a practice of 90 players, of whom 83 had been to the Pro Bowl. 7 of them have now gone to the Hall of Fame. And things got better. And then we started doing baseball. And I had a partner, Jeff Morad, and we did all sorts of baseball also. The key in all of this, when people think that it's suasion that gets clients, and it's suasion and speech, the real critical skill is listening. It's doing intelligent listening and drawing people out. I know it will come as a major shock and surprise to the women in this audience that men very often don't share their deep emotional feelings quite as easily as women do. Okay, call me crazy. So the key is to try to peel back the layer of the onion. And what I used to do is I would take values like short-term economic gain, long-term economic security, family, geographical location, profile,